2010. You have $100,000. Someone tells you about a new digital currency called Bitcoin. Each coin costs less than 1 cent. They say it could be the future of money. You think it sounds ridiculous. You don't invest. That $100,000 would be worth $6.8 billion today. This is the story of the most painful investment decision in history, and why almost every single person on Earth made the wrong choice. It is January 2010. The world is still recovering from the biggest financial crisis since the Great Depression. Banks have just been bailed out with taxpayer money. People have lost their homes, their savings, their faith in the financial system that was supposed to protect them. And somewhere on the internet, in obscure forums, in conversations between programmers and cryptographers, a different idea is spreading. An idea about money that doesn't require banks. That can't be inflated by governments. That belongs to whoever holds it, and nobody else. It is called Bitcoin, and in January 2010, 1 Bitcoin costs less than 1 cent, $0.008. For $100,000, the kind of money a careful saver might have accumulated over a decade, you could have purchased 12.5 million Bitcoin. 12.5 million Bitcoin. The people who knew about Bitcoin in 2010 were almost universally dismissive. Financial advisors called it a Ponzi scheme. Economists called it worthless. Journalists called it dangerous. The mainstream consensus from virtually every expert in every relevant field was that Bitcoin was either a scam or a toy, not real money, not an investment, not worth a single dollar of serious consideration. So if you had $100,000 in 2010 and you heard about Bitcoin, what would you have done? Be honest with yourself. You would have done exactly what almost everyone else did. You would have said no. Here is what happened to the 12.5 million Bitcoin that your $100,000 could have bought. In 2011, Bitcoin reached $1 for the first time. Your investment, if you had made it, would have been worth $12.5 million in 1 year. From 100,000, most people who were tracking Bitcoin at this point sold everything. They took the 125 times return and walked away feeling like geniuses. They weren't geniuses. They were early but not patient enough. In 2013, Bitcoin reached $1,000. The investment was now worth $12.5 billion. 12 billion. From 100,000. The people who had held through the skepticism, through the crashes, through the years of being called crazy by everyone they knew, those people were now among the wealthiest humans alive. And then it crashed. In 2014, Bitcoin fell from $1,000 to $200. 80% of the value gone. For most people, this would have been the end. The proof that everyone who said it was worthless was right all along. The rare few who had held through the rise, most of them sold in the crash. Most. The ones who didn't sell, who held through the 80% loss, who ignored the noise, who simply waited, watched Bitcoin recover to $20,000 by 2017. Their 12.5 million coins were now worth $250 billion. Then it crashed again, 80%, again, down to $3,000. And then recovered again, to $68,000 in 2021. The $100,000 invested in 2010 held through 2 80% crashes, through years of ridicule, through the complete uncertainty of holding something that most of the world considered worthless would be worth, at Bitcoin's 2021 peak, $850 billion. The question that haunts everyone who missed Bitcoin is not, why didn't I hear about it? Most people heard about it. The question is, why didn't I believe it? And the answer is the same answer that has explained every missed revolutionary opportunity in history. The experts said no. The majority said no. The safe, rational, evidence-based consensus said no. And human beings are wired to trust the consensus, especially when the alternative requires acting on something that feels uncertain, unfamiliar, and potentially embarrassing. The people who bought Bitcoin in 2010 were not smarter than you. They were not more financially sophisticated. They were not lucky in any meaningful sense. What they were almost universally was comfortable being wrong in public, comfortable with the possibility that their friends would laugh at them, comfortable putting money into something they couldn't fully explain to their parents. That comfort with being different, with being early, with being temporarily wrong on the way to being permanently right, is the single characteristic that separates the people who made 12.5 million Bitcoin purchases from the people who didn't. So what do you do with this information? Because dwelling in regret about 2010 is not useful. The Bitcoin opportunity of 2010 is gone. The only question that actually matters is what comes next. Every generation has its Bitcoin moment, a technology or idea that seems ridiculous to the majority at exactly the moment when early adoption would be transformative. The Internet in 1993, Amazon in 1997, the iPhone in 2007, Bitcoin in 2010. The pattern is always the same. Experts dismiss it, the mainstream ignores it, early adopters are laughed at, and then years later, the early adopters are billionaires, and everyone else is asking why they didn't see it coming. The lesson is not buy Bitcoin. The lesson is, when something revolutionary appears and the entire consensus says it's worthless, that is exactly the moment to pay the closest attention. Because the crowd has been wrong about every major technological shift in history, every single one, without exception. The next opportunity that looks exactly like Bitcoin 2010, obscure, technical, laughed at by experts, dismissed by the mainstream, is probably already here, right now, in some forum, in some conversation between people who sound completely crazy. The question is whether you are paying attention, and whether this time you are comfortable enough with being wrong in public to act on what you find. $100,000. January 2010. Bitcoin at 0.008 cents per coin. $6.8 billion today. Not because Bitcoin was obviously going to succeed, not because the people who bought it were smarter than you, not because you missed something that was easy to see, but because they were willing to be wrong, in public, for years, on something that the entire world said was worthless. The next opportunity that requires that same willingness is already out there. Are you paying attention this time?